Hey guys, Ralph here. I'm back. We're going to talk a little bit about LOD calculations. I first started getting into LOD calculations when I first um, started kind of doing some more complex visualizations, kind of looking at how I can calculate percentages and rates while still keeping a certain level of a visualization. Um, just some background, really quick. So think of, for those of you that are into SQL and know the SQL syntax, think of LOD calculations like a SQL query, right? You need specific words to basically tell the compiler what you're trying to do. And that's kind of the same thing with Tableau, right? You need some simple keywords to kind of identify at what level of detail you're going to be calculating or extracting data at. So um, let's kind of do a comparison. So, think of like in a SQL query, you need a select statement, you need some select dimensions, you need the from action word to notify from what data set you're going to be doing this from, a where statement if there's some conditions, um, and then you could close off your query. Some syntax code like SAS needs different stuff. Like if you're doing a proc SQL, a procedural SQL statement, you need proc SQL, the general SQL statements, and then you need to end it with an end statement or a run statement. So to the LD calculation, you're gonna have to incorporate some action words to tell Tableau, hey, I'm doing a SQL statement here, or I'm sorry, I'm doing a LOD calculation here, and this is what I want to do. So you're gonna need to do some curly brackets, the type of LOD, the dimensions you want to use, the colon to separate the dimensions from the actual levels of aggregation on the measures that you're gonna do. So what you're looking on the screen here is basics LED calculations I put together using the Superstore data set that comes with your Tableau software. So I'm going to open one calculation that I did. So just to kind of give you reference, I brought in the region, I brought in the category, the subcategory, and I brought in just the basic measure of sales. And then I accompanied it with a bunch of LED calcs. One that's at the region and category, region, category, and subcategory, and then subcategory alone by itself. So let's bring in just one really quick, just to look at how it was created. So check this out. I'm gonna blow this up a bit with Control Mouse up. So notice how I did the fixed region and then the sum of sales. So there's a curly bracket. You're opening it up for the calculation. You're doing your action of the type of LOD. You're identifying the dimension you're doing it off of. Colon, which separates your dimension callouts and the measure you're doing it on. And then you're aggregating the value, the measured value here. Closing it off with a curly bracket. And then that's the basic calculation for a fixed LOD at the region level for this data set. Now you can do multiple ones. If you're going to do multiple dimensions, just separate them with a comma. And then you can also do some dimensions where, let's say you have the value of year at like a string or as like a dimension. You can do region, comma, year equals a specific value, and then that'll actually partition it more based on the call out what you're trying to get it to equal to. So it's a little bit more tricky. You kind of have to break that down a bit. That's what I do. Is I usually, if I'm doing multiple dimensions, I try to break it down and see if it makes sense to me, including all the categories here. So let's look at those calculations. So check this out. Fixed LOD, excuse me, at the region level for bookcases. So right now, the basic sales measure for bookcases under the furniture category in the central region is 24,157. However, the fixed LOD at the region is 501,240. So what does that mean? Basically, what it's doing is it's doing it at the region level. So it doesn't. You can put category in here. You can put subcategory in here, but you're still going to calculate this at the region level. So let me give you just a quick quality check. If I highlight this bookcase, go to the East region, highlight that one. South, highlight that one. And west, let me see, that's not bookcases. Let's see. There it is. And west, bookcases. I think that's it. Bookcases. Let me make sure I get everything highlighted. Bookcases, bookcases. 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 That would be if you're doing it the fixed at the subcategory. So I kind of jumped the gun here on that. Fixed at the region, basically sales at the region level. So notice how all the rows are 501,240, and then if you go down to the actual region, the total 501,240. So this is kind of your check. You're gonna fix at the region. Well, for that specific region, central total is 501,240, 501,240. And then the next region, east, 678,781. If you go to the east region on the general value of sales, 678,781. All right, now let's add 2 dimensions, region and category. Notice how for region and category, the bookcases is 163,797. So notice how if you change the region category combination, so central furniture, now we're going to central office supplies, that value is going to change here. Central technology, the value changes again here. And then your basic check, 163,797. Here's the total for that central, that category and region, 163,797. And then if you're doing a fix at the region, category, and subcategory, you notice how these are all going to equal out to the same row here. And the reason for that is because we have those exact dimensions called out here on the left side as columns. I also did a lone fixed LOD at the subcategory, so that's what I was mixed up on earlier and what I was trying to do. So 114,880 is basically the sum of sales for all bookcases, irrelevant to the call out of category and region. So that's a basic kind of reference to the fixed calculation. Think of it more of you're calculating it based on specific dimensions that you have power over, that you're calling out, and then you can create your visualization while at different levels of detail while still maintaining that calculation. Now, there are also the other types. There's an include and there's an exclude. So exclude is exactly what it sounds like. You're removing that dimension from the level of detail. So, for instance, I have a value, quick dashboard here. Let me see. Okay. So this may be too small for you to see, so I'm going to do a quick, let's see, bring up formatting, back up to something readable. There we go. And the measure names. Okay. So now we're looking at exclude, okay? So we're excluding at the region level. So what does that do? It actually looks at the sum of sales regardless of the region. So what does that tell you? It's actually going to look at the bookcases throughout the whole data set, excluding the region, right? As long as they kind of line up to the furniture category, which they do. And then if you exclude region and category, it's still the same thing. The reason it's still the same thing is because bookcases does map to furniture. Now, if for some reason you had bookcases matched up to a different category from another region, then you'd have a different value there. Check this one out. Exclude LOD at the region, category, and subcategory. So what that's doing is it's looking at pretty much everything. So it's looking at all sales. So I'm showing region, category, subcategory in rows, but I'm excluding them in this calculation. So basically what it's doing is it's just summing sales for the whole data set. Now if I exclude subcategory by itself, then I am basically getting the sum of sales at the category level and at the region level. And you see how that all matches up to what you see here. 228.53 to 28.53. I think probably in my experience the most consistent one or prevalent one I've used is the fixed. That's to create simple ratios if I wanted to create percent of sales but still maintain the level of detail of the visualization I'm creating. Include is another one. Basically, you're using specific dimensions in addition to the current worksheet view. So, for instance, I'm going to go to that one and show you that one really quick. Okay, let's see. So this is include at the region, region category, subcategories, subcategory. So notice how they're all the same. It's because it's an addition to the columns I have out here. If I were to take off subcategory, it's an addition to what's already out there. So take that one off. So it's all going to follow basically on top of what you're creating. So now let's say, for instance, let's say we can cut this up some more. Let's say we do yeah. So my biggest kind of advice is to get familiar with the fixed. The fixed itself is going to probably be the most popular one, I would say, LOD. Remember that when you're creating a fixed LOD calculation, most of the filters are going to be ignored by that, except for any data source or extract and context filters. So if you remember, if you have city out there, and let's say I just look at Abilene, sale of one, appliances, but then notice all these are still at the data source level. If I add the context, then basically the LOD will treat that as part of the data source or extract filters and then does the calculation after making note of that filter. You don't, and one other tidbit, you don't have to include a dimension. So let's say, for instance, you wanted to get a max date. I use this a lot when I'm working with data sets and I wanted to get a max date so I can notify the user, hey, this data is as of this, or updated as of this month, right? So then what I do is I leverage the data set used as getting the max date of that to identify when the data's updated to. And basically, what you're doing with that is you're doing a standard. You're doing a standard. Here it is. A standard fixed calculation, but you don't have any note of a dimension. Just fixed colon max ship date, right? So then you can basically, find out when the most recent ship date is of the data set. Another one you can do is the min. So you can do max or min as an aggregation. And remember, if you leave out the dimension, it's automatically going to go based on your original data set. So in a nutshell, I'd say that's probably what an LOD does. It's kind of calculating based off certain partitions that you're giving it to. I like it because you're actually taking control and power of the data set. You're not having to do any funky kind of visualizations or any funky level of detail views in your columns. You can still maintain power of what you want to calculate, but also show something else, right? So that's what I like about the LOD calculations, and in specific the fixed LOD calculation. Please take a look at my blog post. I'm going to have a sample of this kind of view out there off of the Superstore data set. I have a sample of these calcs off fixed, off include, off exclude. But again, feel free to dig into it, break it apart, download it, keep working on it, and this will serve as a good jump start to kind of peel out the layers of how the calculations work in reference to the fixed, include, and exclude level of detail calculations. Let me know what y'all think, and thanks a lot for listening. Take